Why do you love crypto?
There's no other way to describe it. It is the most cutting edge part of marketing. There's more freedom than any other industry.
And that makes work not feel so much like work. It makes it feel like just another great part of your life that helps like shape who you are, why you're doing what you're doing.
You can take what you've already done that was innovative, throw it away and build something new.
You want to give someone something versus taking something away. Projects underestimate the power of community. Numbers are fake. The only thing that's real is culture and vibes.
Leadership is not a means to an end. It's just a calling on the way to shaping the reality of everyone else. What are you cost signaling? How have you done the hard things to show that you've done the hard things? If you have a cool identity as a brand or anything, and you stick to what your guns are, then eventually it's going to work.
Economics.
Chain Yoda, welcome, mate.
Thank you very much. Good morning. It's good to be here.
Good to be here. Beautiful place.
Yeah.
So you live here, right? You live in Dubai.
Yes. I've been here 3 years.
Nice, man. Nice. I actually want to start on something that we were just talking about earlier, and I actually want to show you one of your own tweets that I.
Oh no.
The tweet I want to go for is I am studying PMF these days. Pump market fit.
Yes.
What did you mean by that? I thought it was really interesting.
So the thing about crypto is, I've been in blockchain for 5 years and crypto for 5 years, and they're completely different industries. We'll talk about that. So crypto tokens have no pricing, like there is no discounted cash flow. There is no, financial model for any of this stuff. It just things go up and you don't know, or down and you don't know why and how far. So certain things tend to do better than others, and I've been trying to understand. So I started as a tech guy. I was in sort of banking, risk, then consulting. So I like to understand things like a failed academic sort of person. And now I'm trying to understand why certain tokens go up a lot, whether those are for organic reasons or inorganic reasons, right? And I really want to understand the flows of money and the flow of memes and the anthropology of it all, but also the investment banking side of things. So yeah, that's why I was wondering why, let's say, SUI is doing so much better than Aptos, or SUI is the token, right? It's got nothing to do with technology or metrics or any of that stuff. Or why it's doing, let's say, better than Ethereum, which has a lot of traction, or why Fartcoin is doing better than AI16Z. So we in crypto we call it pump, and pump is like this metaphysical, very deeply spiritual experience. When a token you hold goes up, then and it goes up a lot, and suddenly is known as the pump, right? So there are even memes like respect the pump, as in you don't try to understand it, you just respect it, you honor it. It's like paying homage to a god, right? Oh, thank you, Zeus, you pumped my coin. So I'm just trying to understand these things against the advice. So I used to get very salty when the tokens I wasn't holding pumped.
Of course.
Right, like if I'm not an investor and the damn thing pumps, or even I think it's like something that probably has some nefarious activity and that's going up, then I would feel bad about it. Now I just want to understand it. I don't want to be involved in some of those activities necessarily, but I do want to understand what the fuck is going on.
Yeah. I think that's a deeply spiritual thing as well, right? It's like seeing the world for what it is, not trying to complain about it.
Yeah, it's funny because, in 2016, I was at PwC, and it's one of my favorite stories. So I ran into Joe Lubin at Luxembourg, the co-founder of Ethereum, and I was doing blockchain with Jeremy Drain. Jeremy looked after the US, I looked after almost the rest of the world as sort of the resident expert on blockchain technology. I was a tech guy then, right? Nothing to do with pump. Then I met Joe and I was like, Joe, all this crypto stuff is no good. You got to do blockchain, enterprise blockchain. Like,
do you still feel the same way?
No, fuck no. Right? So now I'm a crypto guy.
Yeah.
Right? So then I was a blockchain guy. Those are different things.
Yeah.
So,
DLT, baby.
DLT, baby, exactly. Use cases,
Yes.
Use cases. Now I just spend a lot of time investing and dealing with the, venture capital and angel investing, that sort of thing. And I see a lot of founders who are very, very strong on the engineering and product side, but nothing happens to the token, right? The token just comes out and dies. And then there are products that are non-existent, like Cardano barely works, right? And and
But
they keep
it's Haskell. It's formally verified.
Yeah, my ass, right? So, and these things just keep going up. So I've been trying to understand the sociology and anthropology, right? Some of these are very strong cults. Like
Exactly.
you can go meet people and they're really loyal and they really believe in it, like Scientology type of stuff. And then a logical person would be quite like, especially coming from engineering, when you try to explain everything on a spreadsheet or some equation, you feel like this doesn't make sense. But then if you take that hat off and start looking at things from the humanities perspective and say, okay, does this have a tribe, and does this, how did the tribe arise? Why does it exist? How was it formed? How has it grown? Right. So, and then you sort of draw parallels from other things that are going on in society.
What would you give as an example to that?
Yeah. So in 98, I moved to the US, right? And one of my friends introduced me to this thing called Amway. Right, Amway is a multi-level marketing scheme. It's like Herbalife, right? But just bigger. So what they do is they recruit people to sell to other people. Right?
Yes.
It's known as multi-level marketing, right? So let's say I've been in Amway for a long time. I've sold a lot of cosmetics to people. So I'm a diamond now. I have a big fat revenue stream. I'm the American dream, right? I came from India, Sri Lanka, wherever, and I've gotten very rich by selling these.
Sell to your cousins.
Things people don't need.
Right? So,
to people. And
so you were an Amway seller?
I tried, but I was too lazy.
No way.
I was too lazy. I just wanted to sit in an AC room at a desk and just fucking code, right?
Okay,
because that's what I was good at. So. So I end up in this Amway conference, and there are people going and on stage, and they're really impressing everyone else by showing how committed to the cause of selling to other people they are.
Lots of signaling.
Yeah. And you know what? Because they got the pump in their life, right? They got the power of the pump in their life. So
it's like the BitConnect guy on stage.
That's
it's
exactly
the same vibe.
That's how they recruit people, right? By showing examples of people who got very rich on this thing.
Yeah, and you see belonging as well. People feel like, oh, I'm part of a family now.
Yeah, bro. I mean, this is the American dream, or now it's the global dream, right?
Dubai
now
dream.
we live in a consumerist society, and it's everyone's dream, not just the Americans' dream to really, get very rich at the expense of maybe other things. Yeah. So I joined this thing, and I was like, bro, am I gonna work this hard? Nah. So I kind of dropped out very quickly within 2 weeks, but I really understood how that thing actually worked, because I'm analytical by design.
Yeah.
And now I see the same sort of thing with Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Right. So the people who get in early then sell to people who are late, and then social media comes along. It's funny if you track, the origins of Twitter in when was this? 2003, 2008, something like that, right? And so Twitter and social, the growth of social, has paralleled the growth of cryptocurrency worldwide, right? And now we see, so you see people on social media getting in early into some coins, let's say fart coin.
Yeah.
And these aren't like VCs, right?
No.
So, I mean, people blame VCs, but these are just like people who were in the trenches on some Telegram chat, and they make $1 million on, on something called fart coin. And the next thing, they devote their lives. It becomes like this missionary cause,
exactly.
Like going to Africa and saving the sinners, right? So now they're trying to save us, all of us sinners, from farts without fart coin. So you see the social media phenomenon and this multi-level marketing and network selling sort of organically arising. Tim Draper gets into Bitcoin and ends up with 18 million, and then he sells it to everyone else.
Yeah.
And then those people sell to other people. Now suddenly institutions are coming in, and so this thing is a social media phenomenon. So I've been trying to understand internet anthropology, how some Discord tribes form, how Telegram groups behave. Right? I don't have the math or the AI for it. I'm too busy with actual work, but it's fascinating to kind of think about this and reflect on the structure of internet societies. So that's the intellectual version of it, right? Now there is the actual practical version of it, which is where, okay, so where's the volume on Upbit, right? Why is there volume on this Korean exchange? Where are the Koreans buying? Who is this thing being promoted to? Where are the pockets of capital and risk on capital versus risk off capital?
And which stage of the token are they going to start buying?
That's right.
You raise in the West, exit in the east.
Yeah, and what do people really care about? I mean,
Yeah.
it's a bit more complicated than that,
Yeah.
but yes. So that's the meme right now. And also, how does this thing actually go on the internet? So when I was at PwC, Bitcoin was the drug dealer coin, right?
course.
So I bought it at 300, sold at 3,000, but worse things can happen to you.
Exactly.
But now, I mean, now you have BlackRock's Larry Fink shilling Bitcoin. It's surreal, right?
So I remember being on the forums, and
Yeah.
then you tell people and be like, "Hey, you should check this out." They're like, "Nah, it looks kind of dodgy, shady." And now you have the president
That's right.
announcing things to do with
Oh,
it.
well,
Well, maybe not that
yeah,
specifically.
I'm not
but
gonna
We can
say-
talk about that later.
I mean, we do not discuss politics on
Of course.
on the dinner table. But
No, no, no.
anyways, so yeah, now see, it's kind of like how the cults form, right?
Yeah.
So a cult of a certain size is a cult.
Yeah.
And then it grows big enough.
How many people do you need to make a cult? What would you say?
A cult can be as small as 5 people, right?
Yeah.
So, but a religion,
Mm.
when a cult grows big enough and it becomes mainstream, then it becomes a religion. So now
Yes.
Bitcoin, we know, has become a religion, right?
Yes.
Back then when I started, it was a cult, and I didn't believe in it then. It's not even clear if I believe in it now, but but now I understand it better, right?
Mm.
So both the economics of it and the anthropology of it. So, and then I think some people reverse engineered this Bitcoin formula much earlier because they were
They did.
part of the Bitcoin tribe, like Brad Garlinghouse of Ripple, and they kind of engineered the same sort of machine, right? What we call community, right? So there is this, and then later on Vitalik, Joe, Charles Hoskins, and a whole bunch of other founders, and then Balaji kind of formalized that thinking in a very logical way in his network state book. So I think so understanding this, making money, I'm sure must be fun. I made some of it, but not a lot of it, right? But understanding money. If I grew up in a family that was academic and had no money, right? But extremely academic. So for me, like this intellectual masturbation, as they say, is a great pleasure. So I want to understand what the fuck is going on.
Let's go on that. Tell me about where you grew up.
Yeah, I grew up in India in a small town,
Mm.
right? So Haldwani, Ramnagar, so like in the Nainital district in the hills across from China and Nepal. And it's a really beautiful place. And we were, at that time, my parents were socialists, and I'm probably the evil capitalist in the family. So yeah, because I think we were all growing up in this Soviet era influence of the central planning and all that, and that had pulled us out of total poverty into relative. At that time it felt like middle class, right? So now looking back, it probably wasn't, but at that time, compared to where we were coming from post independence, I think it was pretty good.
Yeah.
So that's the thing about relative. Wealth. We'll talk about that in crypto as well, right?
Yeah.
Is 10 million enough to retire?
Exactly.
Yeah. So I grew up in that, and they were all like hyper educated. Too much education.
That can be a negative
lots of time
sometimes,
just-
right?
Oh, in crypto? Fuck yes.
Yeah.
You think you lose, right? So,
Exactly.
yeah, but it depends. I think the best model. Well, we'll talk about that too, right? Because what you want to do in a reflexive, mimetic industry like crypto is
Be early, be dumb,
Be
be
on the
smart,
right curve.
and exit.
but train yourself to be on the left curve. So the left curve is where you're not very intelligent. You use system one, which is Daniel Kahneman's system one, and you act like you act before you think, and you press the button when it's still cheap, and you make a bunch of bets, and you operate on memes and vibes, and all this what the fuck is going on the Telegram group sort of thing.
Yeah.
And then the right side of it is the right curve part is the intellectual understanding and analysis of why things work and how things work. So if you have the market understanding and then you operate like a left curver, you do all right? I mean, I've experienced that. Now, if you're a mid curver, which is what I was at PwC, right, where you kind of apply conventional logic to everything.
Yes.
That's when you don't make
Or you
it.
think you're smarter than the market.
You think you're smart? No. Forget about market. If you think you're smart, you fucked.
Yeah.
Right? So you think you know how things work, you're screwed.
I think that's going to be the title of this. If you think you're smart, you're fucked.
Yeah. If you think you know how things work, right? You're
Yes.
screwed because things change by the time you figure them out.
Yeah.
So So I think so that reflexive, instinctive press button. What do you call pump.fun vibe is kind of where the world is headed.
Yeah.
And You can analyze it after the fact. Like
Exactly.
Murad has a thesis on meme coins. I
Yeah.
have a bunch of explanations for Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And XRP, and what kind of founder. So I work with a lot of founders, and I have an evolved view on what makes a crypto founder work versus a tech founder and things like that. So yeah.
No, we can definitely talk about that. But Brian Chesky for Airbnb says that action breeds information, and you've got to operate on imperfect information. Same thing that Barack Obama said, regardless of his politics, is you'll never have perfect information. If you wait for that, then you've already lost.
Yeah, I know founders who are very, who'd be great fit in corporate environments. Where
Yes, risk averse. Yeah, pros and cons.
Yeah, exactly. Risk averse, pros and cons. But more importantly, very, analytical and want a large degree of perfect information before they actually act. And usually it's already too late by the time they act. So because the market has changed, we've gone from bull to bear, or the narrative has shifted. And did you ever work at Near?
No.
Okay.
Worked with Near for a long time.
Yeah. So, so very, very smart people tend to like surprise you on the downside. So Near is a good example, right? One of the best engineering teams that I've known, but extremely analytical. So Ethereum is going through that right now, where people are overthinking the whole thing and
trying to find their identity. They've lost their pump-amentals.
They've lost the pump-amentals, right? You lose the pump-amentals, you lose the community. You lose the community, you lose the devs. You lose the devs, you lose the technology. So yeah, so pump is sort of like this North Star, the spiritual, destination. It's like it serves as it's the god.
Yeah, it's a state of mind.
It's literally the monotheistic god of cryptocurrency, right? If pump happens, then everything happens. If pump doesn't happen, then it doesn't really matter what else happened.
Yeah, religion's such a good analogy, right? Because Bitcoin was the original monotheistic, Christ-like figure, sacrificed himself. He's gone now, left his legacy, and then we got all of these kind of polytheistic religions trying to come in.
Yeah, so that's not how it started, right? Yeah. I think Satoshi wasn't this mythical figure until he had found the pump.
Yeah.
So Satoshi was some guy who, even back in 2014, Satoshi was some guy. And in 2014, Vitalik and Joe were definitely some guys, right? I mean, Vitalik became the El Papa, the Pope much later, the Holy Father. And now Solana is doing well, and with Toli has, last year, like Solana was at $8, and Twitter was going about calling him a scammer.
Yeah.
Now it's then it went to 300, and they're going about calling him Satoshi and Vitalik, right? So Pump is the god, and the messenger of Pump is often the prophet,
the Holy Trinity.
Exactly. So the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. So crypto is funny. It's really hilarious. There is this technology side to it, which is like the 10% of it, and then there is the cryptocurrency side of it, which is the 90%. I come from the 10%, and now I'm trying to understand what's going on in the. Anyways, I've said a lot of different things, but yes. So crypto is a really funny, internet phenomenon. It's actually just the internet, right? It's part of the internet. You see the same sort of phenomenons on TikTok and Discord and other types of communities also, like gaming communities. But I grew up in a more bookworm, read a lot, do a lot of math, study all the time, never get laid, that sort of,
I feel you, dude.
That's how I grew up. So so for me, this has been one hell of an education on understanding
how the world really works. Right?
But gamers who grow up just playing games and on Discord and whatnot, like a lot of these young boys, like my second son, have a much easier time handling understanding crypto. They just get it.
When you were growing up, I don't know if you know this. I used to be a doctor, so
oh no,
I was. We moved from Sri Lanka to the UK when I was pretty young.
What happened? Someone died?
No. Mum was doing a PhD.
Okay.
But then, so we moved there, and then, as you were saying, very intellectual family.
Yeah.
Sri Lanka, kind of similar to India, a lot of distrust of business, anything capitalist, right?
Yeah.
So how did you get over that? Know that because I was a doctor, because I was like, well, I didn't know what else to do. I didn't know that like business was an option. Parents didn't tell you not to do it, but they were like, it's dangerous, it's shady, this, that. But intellectual is safe, it's pure, it's good. And then you realize that you don't make any fucking money.
No, you don't make any fucking money, right?
How did you rebel against that? Why?
I did not rebel against that at all. Actually, it just happened, right? So I went to IIT, and it was a very American-influenced institution because the MIT and Berkeley guys had sort of been were the people who actually built it out with the Indian government. And so a lot of people used to go to the US after, but no one was going to Moscow after graduation, right?
Yeah.
So that tells you something. And by that time, the Berlin Wall had fallen, and the Russian Empire was falling, and America was taking over in a unipolar world. So it came naturally, right? Because look, everyone has to follow the money at some point, right?
Yeah.
So you go to IIT, next thing you need a job. You work in a software company, and that company has all the US customers, right? So, and then in '98, I end up in the US, and I lived there for 5 years, and I think that's it. It just became part of me. I didn't actually do anything. I mean, I ended up in a very US influenced environment and in the US itself, and it was a unipolar US world. I'm sure if the Soviet Union was still running half the world, then maybe my brain would have been washed. I think we give ourselves too much credit, and the environment not enough credit, right? So,
I agree.
so there are people. It's the same as crypto, right? So if you're part of the Cardano cult, then you think Charles Hoskinson has some kind of divine powers, and or at least he gave you the pump. So he must be.
He gave you the pump?
He gave you the pump, right?
Yeah.
He is the giver of the pump.
He's the link to. It's like a priest.
That's right. He's the messenger of pump.
Yeah.
So whereas if you grow up in the Ethereum crowd, then you think Charles is a scammer, and Vitalik is the Pope.
Yeah.
And if you grow up in Solana, you obviously feel differently. So I think it's which tribe you grow up in and what's actually going on around you that influences your thinking. Like Russian spies, hardcore Soviet spies ended up in the US, and they found out it wasn't so bad. And then you have Edward Snowden going out and he thinks it's not so bad over there, right? So I think it's your environment that shapes you more than people talk about agency and free will, and sure, but that has a big role. But I think your environment has a much bigger role in life, no matter what. I mean, a lot of people who made a shit ton of money in 2021 because Jerome Powell printed a lot of money think they were Steve Jobs, but they're not Steve Jobs today,
You're
right?
just riding low interest rates.
Yeah. So, but they're not Steve Jobs today.
Yeah.
I mean, Steve Jobs is no more, but you know what I mean, right? So I think your environment, not to be fatalistic, I think obviously within the context, you can choose who you want to be, but the context still has a big role. So so I kind of just, grew up then I worked for Goldman and all the US firms. So I think sometimes my wife is very disappointed by how Americanized I've become, because my son studies in the US and I give him very bad advice that an Indian dad would never do.
Like what kind of advice?
Like join a frat, or socialize a bit, and don't spend all your time studying and that sort of shit. So or I would take my son out to party, and then I was like, well, you're his dad, and you never stop growing up, right? It's a myth that you're now 48 years old, so you're now shaped forever. That's bullshit. I think there are certain core parts of a person that don't change. But then there is a whole other, layer on layer of our mind that actually is shaped by, like, Dubai. Right now, Dubai has changed me in the last 3 years. So,
How so?
Dubai is extremely dynamic. It's also very materialistic, right? In a different way than, let's say, San Francisco or New York, right? So because let's say you grow up I mean, I keep saying grow up because I assume that you're growing up even at 48 or 60. My dad is still writing books. He's 84, right? He's still learning. He's on ChatGPT all the time. So if you're in Silicon Valley and with let's say AI guys or maybe some research people, then you're thinking on how the world works, or how you make money, or how you build a career, or how you bring up children, is all impacted by the people around you. If you grow up in Dubai, then some of the stereotypes are true, right? Dubai has fast cars. Dubai has a lot of construction.
Steroids,
Dubai
watches.
is the center of trade. Even the crypto people can keep buying properties and
still can't do it with NFTs yet, right?
If you're in Dubai, so there are certain things around you that change how you think about how the world works and what's
which is a good thing, right? You got to ride the waves of.
I don't know.
Understand.
Yeah, I don't think everything can be labeled as good or bad.
Yeah,
I think it just happens, right? If you're in crypto, like Pump, right? So I think if I spoke to some of my Google Brain people, my IIT classmates who are doing ML research at Google Brain about pump, they'll be like, what the fuck are you talking about, man? But now if I talk about pump and influencer, KOL, all this stuff to crypto people, it's kind of just the normal
Yes.
thing, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
but in so similarly, we had this Mantra DAO incident 2 weeks ago,
Yes, of
and
course.
so I spoke to some of the team members, and they think it's just normal. When I was at PwC doing reg risk compliance, I'd be like, bro, this is a violation of this and that, right? So I
Yes.
think, anyways, there's a lot of things I'm not saying, but I think the important thing is that, your environment has a much bigger impact on who you become and who you
Yeah.
are.
Only if you let it, right?
No, I mean, there are two ways to do it, right?
Yeah.
One is to just struggle against it while your life. Well, three ways. The second is, and then you lose, right? Because it's survival of the fittest.
Yes.
Or you just completely become the person.
But then you'd have no center.
Then you have no center. And then also you lose, right?
Yeah.
You kind of lose track of who you are. Or you keep your idealism and your
Yes.
compass intact. And then you make crazy tweets like Vitalik, and number
Yes.
still goes up.
Number still goes up?
Number still goes up. So you have to learn to operate in the real world
Yeah.
while protecting your idealism and your, that's the hardest thing,
Yeah.
right? And that applies to everything, whether you operate in investment banking or consulting or AI or crypto or whatever else. The hardest thing is really figuring out which parts are you and which parts are the world.
I love your reasoning and philosophy. You sound like you got like a triangle of like a bit of Sartre's nihilism, a bit of Nietzsche's God is dead, and a bit of Buddhist pragmatism, and like see the middle way. Like, do you have a philosophy? Do you have?
I think
like
Buddha is the closest I have.
Yeah.
So yeah. I think he figured it out. I follow, I have read a lot about it. My dad was not a believer in anything to do with Hinduism has Buddha also derives from some of the Upanishadic philosophy,
Yes.
right? So he was a very well learned man, and he went to 7 different scholars of his time, the greatest
Yes.
scholars, and
Yeah,
argued with them and defeated them in the debates. And then he went on to meditate, right? Then he said, yeah, fuck this, I'm gonna go meditate and try to find out what's actually going on.
It's the
And
journey
then-
of a tech founder, right? You make it all the way up, then you look for meaning, and then you suddenly go into the wilderness, go to like a Vipassana retreat,
Yeah.
and then you give it all up, and then you start woodworking in the wilderness.
It's a bit worse than that. It's like you go to all these accelerators and incubators and founder coaches and VCs for advice, and none of that actually works,
Yeah.
right? Because the world has changed and the world is actually inside of you. And then you essentially, go meditate under a tree, put yourself through a load of shit because you had the other side. You went through a lot of pleasures. You went to all the yacht parties and, you've tried all the fun things. You've done the frat and you've done the whole hedonism. So now you go to the forest and you fucking starve yourself. And then you say, okay, that didn't work. This shit also doesn't work. And then you find this, this pudding, and then
The
you
middle
go,
way.
fuck, wow. Okay, now I know.
Yeah.
It's the middle path, right?
Yeah.
So Buddha, I think, got a lot of things right, and a lot of the things that the Western, philosophers have claimed as their own later on are kind of in that Upanishadic tradition. So Hinduism has 2 parts. There is what we call the karma kand, the rituals, right, and then there is the essence of it all, right, the philosophy. And there are 6 different schools of thought in Hinduism, and they were all like universities, philosophy schools. And Buddha kind of, absorbed all of those and really deeply understood all of those, and then finally found his own path. And then he told his disciples also to find their own path, right? He said, Appadipava, which means just be your own light. Don't listen to the fucking KOLs.
Yeah.
Don't buy things that the influencers are shilling to you. Find your own, do your own research. That's what he said, DYOR. as we say in
DYOR,
crypto.
NFA.
NFA, DYOR. And I'm sure people didn't listen to him. They formed a religion around him,
No.
and they did, a lot of rituals, and they...
It's like Life of Brian. Have you seen it?
No.
Oh, it's a great Monty Python film. It's around that where Jesus comes back and he says, just do good to others. Don't follow me. It's fine. They're like, the prophet said not to follow
it's too
him.
much
He
work.
must be a prophet.
It's too much work, man.
Yeah,
It's too
yeah,
much
yeah.
work to not follow anybody, right? Like,
Exactly.
you always need a Vitalik or a Brad or a Charles or Tolly in your life to just, because otherwise you're going to have to do the work, right?
Exactly.
I don't like doing the work.
It's a scary world to do your own work.
Why would you do the work? It's too much work, right?
Yeah.
By definition, it's too much work. It's just
Exactly.
better to be in the trenches and press fucking buttons all day.
I mean, this podcast is all about money, culture, and artificial intelligence,
Yeah.
right? I think we've talked a lot about culture. Where do you see things going in the next year, 5 years, from where you've been?
I don't really know. I
No.
think, but I'll make some guesses.
Go on.
Right. So I think we've had a very long stretch of peace.
Mm.
We were talking about Buddha, and Buddha was a product of war because people never stopped fighting when he was growing up, and a lot of people died, and he saw a lot of people suffer. And that was part of his, asceticism and renunciation, which is, look, the world is fucking pain, and there are philosophies in Hinduism which are the diametric opposite, right? Which
Yes.
is the world is joy and it's bliss, like my guru and Sri Ravi Shankar. So there are philosophies that are the diametric opposite, but Buddha grew up in those times. Now we've been through a very long stretch of peace, and depends on where you are in the world, right? Like Sri Lanka has not been at peace. Kashmir has not been at peace. Israel and Palestine are not at peace. Ukraine is not at peace. Half the world is always at war.
Yeah.
But in Western Europe, since the fall of the Berlin Wall,
Yeah.
Berlin Wall, it's been pretty peaceful. America, since the Civil War, mostly peace-ish.
Yeah.
India, most parts
Pockets.
relatively peaceful. Most parts. China, maybe not Xinjiang, but I think so. So we are quite fortunate to have lived through a very long stretch of peace and prosperity. But the shit can't last because that's not how history has shaped, right? I think there is this continuous flow between war and peace, and
Yes.
I think we're just coming to the end of globalization, right? So since the decline of the Soviet Empire, we've had a very long stretch of globalization and the Friedman hypothesis, where the golden arches are connecting the world and preventing war. Now we are seeing the opposite,
Yeah.
because now we are seeing China has always been making it difficult for the US firms to operate or foreign firms to operate. Now America is kind of saying, look, fuck this, we've had too much of this. Now we're going to fight, go the other way. Europe has always been protectionist. Now, once you start to pull these trade barriers, people start fighting. So Friedman wasn't wrong. Now, but if you don't pull these trade barriers on, then because ultimately we are seeing civilizational conflict. As in, there is the Chinese civilization, very, very well off culturally for a very long time. We have the Arabs, which is us. I live here, so I'm practically an Arab. I consider myself one. Then you have the Greco-Roman, NATO civilization. So these three are pretty powerful. We are stuck in the middle of the Chinese and the Americans, which can be good and which can be bad. As Arabs, I think Arabs have had a hard time because it's very resource rich. And the Brits and the Americans are energy dependent. They love to find ways to take our oil.
Yeah. No, it's giving freedom, right? It's bringing freedom for the
free you from your resources. Absolutely,
free,
yeah. But it's complicated, right? Trade is because oil is what has made
it's energy at the end of the day.
Saudis so well off, and so there is always this tension between trade and militaries. And like military force and trade as a force. Now we are seeing kind of this rewind of globalization. Trump has openly called out globalists. Now the fun thing is that the internet and crypto are the most globalist technologies.
Exactly.
They are a direct product of globalization, right? ARPANET would have been a local thing, and we would have had a lot of those intranets. We would not have had all these undersea cables with free flow of information, relatively free flow of information. And now we kind of starting to, and it's a pendulum, right? Most things, as Karl Marx and Hegel, right, used to say, are dialectic, as in you have thesis, which is things move in a certain direction. You have antithesis, which is there is a reaction to those, and then you kind of there is a synthesis, but then the synthesis is a thesis itself. So you kind of start a new pendulum, right? So now globalization pendulum is kind of swinging the other way. What does that mean? I think that means war.
Yeah.
So, India and Pakistan, you see the flashpoint. Russia, Ukraine, that's already happening. Russia wants, Eastern Europe back.
Yeah.
Arabia, we have always had Americans looking after us. So I think we're going into interesting times, and the only thing I wish is my kids to get to enjoy the peace I had. But I'm 50-50 on that.
Yeah. There's a chance that it might, because, people talk about technology being wrappers for other things, right? But if you think about it, the economy is a wrapper for some things. Currency is a wrapper for essentially exported military might. And then the economy below that is just energy. So you have this chain of events where once the reflexivity increases, globalization connected everything. We were just living off cheap credit and debt for well over 30 years. And now things are starting to wind down again.
Yeah. So intellectual masturbation is the most fun thing. It's so much more fun than actual masturbation, right? So you can go layer after layer after layer. And I've been reading a book called A Brief History of Intelligence, right? So it talks about why humans ended up with language and why, let's say chimps or dolphins have very, very limited language. And it's not even real language, and how that connects to different parts of the brain and the neural networks that we have trained. So the fundamental to language is this idea of group, right? So like humans benefit from what other people have to say, like this sense of shared fiction. There are many shared fictions.
This is Sapiens as well, Yuval Harari's shared myths.
That's right, shared myths. But if you look at which species go to war, right? It's the species that form groups.
Yeah.
Right. Lions, small groups. Yeah. Okay. I just ate the thing and then I'm going to sleep for a week. Right. But whereas termites, some ants, wasps, chimps, humans, of course, we're brutal. We fight in groups. It's groups. Monkeys, they fight in groups, and chimps literally pull the kidneys out of their, competing clans. So war is kind of intrinsic to this idea of being a social animal, right? And humans being the most evolved with shared fictions, like ETH guy is going to war with Solana guys on Twitter and things like that. So whenever we form tribes and large groups, we start, we need more space, we need more resources. So there is something, anyways, intrinsic to human nature and our ability to form groups. When we are not fighting as countries, we are fighting Hindus and Muslims, Solana versus Ethereum, Shias and Sunnis, or some India versus Pakistan. There is always some shit we find because we are fundamentally, social animals who form large groups, and we have a sense of identity, right? We like probably smell each other's farts, as the fart coin guy would say.
Hot air rises.
That's right. But we also know which hot air is which, right? Which hot air is from the Burjman clan or the Al-Barari clan, and we start fighting. So to either compete for resources or just because we are fucking bored. And
it sounds like we need it.
We definitely need it. It's very intrinsic to humanity to just fucking fight and kill each other.
Yeah. So how do you apply that to crypto when you're looking at investing pieces?
So cults are the most valuable investment.
Yes.
Right. So
what do you mean by that?
So Solana guys were all over it, right? So for example, Ripple has been an incredible outperformer. And it didn't happen on crypto Twitter.
No,
I spent too much time on crypto Twitter, but no one on crypto Twitter saw it coming.
Yes.
But when you look at grassroots tribes on the internet, right, like all these TikTok guys and the Korean social media folks and the Chinese social media folks, there is an insane XRP community. The XRP army is insane. Yeah, my taxi driver, my real estate agent, my Uncle has heard of it. So because I'm part of a different cult, right? I'm part of the tech cult. So I like Solana because they have some tech, smart contracts as a developer platform.
Tech is fast, tech is good, so fast is good. So Solana,
buy the fucking token, right? But that's not how it works.
No.
So in the meantime, there are these wonderful tribes of Cardano and XRP and even Richard Hex.
Incredible cult leader.
Incredible cult leader, right?
Insane
cult leaders. So there are these cult leaders, and they're incredible, and there are these network states, right?
Yes.
Massive cryptocurrencies with almost no technology, and there are these huge internet tribes, and Murad talks about it, right?
Yes.
Our meme coin guy.
Do you think they're more powerful because they don't have technology?
So Richard Dawkins, right? Again, to continue to hyper intellectualize the conversation, Richard Dawkins used to talk about memes. They're like genes. In the sense, there are these ideas that replicate themselves and spread out very, very quickly. And memes, motifs, and there are certain things in anthropology that are found across tribes and religions. So they happen. Internet kind of doesn't change the fundamental nature of humanity. right? We are still forming the same tribes. We have the same totems and motifs, and we're like this Lakota tribe, but except it's on the internet, and you look the same as the Comanches, and but you fucking killing each other, right? So
Exactly.
because you have some shared myths and ideas.
But now you're
and
trying to hit someone else's bags instead of
Right.
killing each other. But now you have civil war inside Ethereum as well. You have the Republic is crumbling.
Oh, because Ethereum decided to do what Hinduism decided to do, to form a lot of these sub
Yes.
things, right? So
Exactly. Like the fall of Rome.
That's right. So or the Christians decided to do, right?
Yes.
So there was Methodists, Presbyterians.
Yeah. Who's Henry VIII here?
That's right. So then what happens is these groups form a sense of identity. They have shared myths and memes, and they start fighting, right? I think they have a weird philosophy. I think they just want to fight. That's why they create these differences. So okay, look, Jesus woke up on the left side of the bed, so and the other guys believe he woke up on the right side of the bed. So we're gonna start fighting about which side of the bed. I think humans just need to either make love, because we get bored.
Yes.
Part of intelligence is getting bored. Like crypto is full of novelty seekers. We would rather suffer through fucking pain and lose a lot of money than be bored in a crap market.
Yeah. When I was doing, I always like to think about first principles in marketing, because that's what I'm doing.
That's nice for a doctor.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
Yeah.
But I think it applies because users are like patients. They never do exactly what you expect them to. They never do what you tell them to. If you give them a path that's good for them, they'll do something else. They're not rational actors.
Yeah, that's why doctors smoke so much. Yeah,
Exactly. I smoke cigarettes.
a lot of doctors smoke. It's fucking amazing.
I mean, it is what it is. It's a great thing. Vapes, not cool. Cigarettes, cool. I don't know why, but it's just part of it. But no, I was saying that
20 years later, somebody will publish a research paper and it'll flip. But
exactly. Yeah. When vapes get banned. But I think I used to think people want 4 things: dopamine, sex, mirrors, and cash. So dopamine is like gambling, and because people don't gamble for the cash, they gamble for the thrill, right? If you told a gambler or someone is a meme coin trader, I'm going to give you 10 million, but you can never go and pump fun again, they'd say no. They'd rather just keep losing.
No, I mean, I'll take it and then gamble, but yeah,
exactly.
That's right. Yeah.
So I used to think it was only those things, but I think that the desire to fight is also one of those.
I think it's part of the dopamine, because nothing
right.
stimulates the human mind like a big fucking fight. So
so
there are books on the psychology of soldiers who went to war, and those are useful because when I work with founders, right, some founders have the same experience as going to war, because it's just extremely stressful, right? People have PTSD from running startups. So so one thing that really changes people is this continuous stimulation. Right, you stay awake in the trenches for days on end, and you can get killed at any time. So you're always on high alert. There is this extreme level of dopamine.
Locked in.
Exactly, in the trenches, locked in. That's how they came up with the word, right? So there is this overstimulation for a very long period, and that takes a lot of therapy to unwind.
It does. People miss it too, right? Once you get out of
it's addictive, right? So these are like drugs in your brain. And that's why opioids are addictive, because they,
upregulate the receptors.
Yeah, that's right, receptors, and they work differently but your brain is always producing cannabinoids or other types of chemicals, and I mean, after a while you get hooked on them, and there's withdrawal and all kinds of shit. So crypto does that to people.
It's the greatest game on earth.
Oh God! So that's why I tell most of my, and they don't listen to me, of course. Like the taxi guy and my real estate agent who was asking about Bitcoin. Like, you know what? Just buy the fucking ETF.
Yes.
So do not and I know you as a person. I know what you will be able to handle, right? And I don't want them to start trading perps on Hyperliquid and make some money. That's the worst thing that can happen. If you get liquidated the first time,
you get fucked. Yeah, because you keep coming back. No crying in the casino. We've talked a little bit about kind of different sides of crypto. I always ask the same question because we're in it. We've been in it for you've been in it for years, right? Why do you love crypto?
I think so. I have some characteristics which I fought against for a very long time. Crypto frees me from having to fight against them. So crypto is incredibly welcoming to autists and people with attention deficit.
Yes.
Right.
One of your tweets was autism is a gift.
bro, I can't tell you. My son has it.
Autism is a gift.
And I didn't know I had it until till I actually watched him grow up and then dealt with his, speech and language and a whole bunch of other stuff. And it's incredible. So when I was growing up, it was all about being an all-rounder and getting good grades and everything. And, and you kind of learn to cope with it.
Yeah.
But it's not the best thing that can happen to you. So, so like you have to be good at this and you have to be good at that. And you also have to be socially malleable and, you have to, I hate that shit, right? I don't want to hang out with a lot of people all the time. It just sucks. So, so I think neurodiversity is not, it's very hard for a relatively neurodiverse person to, unless they actually know and are aware of. So I had, I had a lot of trouble with, I'm easily bored, right? So I also don't particularly want to, follow all the rules. I mean, I do want to follow all the laws, but definitely not all of the rules because most of the rules are bullshit, right? And they're just made up because other people did that. So yeah, so for me, I think crypto is fantastic because it kind of, a person with those types of qualities tends to do well in this fringe of the internet where we're still shaping the industry, we're still inventing things. Whereas I tried to fit into a corporate life. I even did a fucking MBA, so how bad can it be, man? And I hated it for 1 year at MBA. I was like, fuck, and I actually spent like so much money on that shit.
Yeah.
So, and they hated me and I hated them back, right? Which was really funny because they were talking about such inane, boring things all day for 8-9 hours.
You're a very direct
a day.
person. I don't think that works very well.
It didn't. So, I had answers to everything. I had whatever. I would raise my hand a lot. And as a developer, I had a great time, right? Because I was with the computer. The computer just fucking did whatever I told it to do. And then I got promoted and I had a great time as a tech lead because, I could just do things and just tell people what to do.
Yeah.
I just know how to talk to computers, right? So, but then I had to deal with fucking people, and I don't like that, right? So then I learned it much later, right? So I learned to sell at PwC, but even there I was not much into backyard barbecues and, taking the partner's sister out to whatever, and all that things that normal people do, schmoozing, and some people are just great at it, right? People have very high IEQs and in a different way.
But you have to be authentic to yourself. What you enjoy, because some people enjoy it, and that's fine.
No, I think enjoyment is overrated, right? So I'm going to contradict you there. Enjoying is overrated. If you follow your feelings, you're ruined, right? So it's not about that. It's not about that. I think the two things you have to do is a slight change of topic, right? But is to find something that you're good at that is also rewarded by society. Right, so
it's very Alan Watts of you. Do you know Alan Watts?
Oh, otherwise you're gonna fucking starve right now. Who is this guy?
Alan Watts was the classic person that you said that the West took a lot of the Eastern philosophies. So Alan Watts was a theologian, who then studied in the West, in the UK, Cambridge, then went to, I think it's Cambridge, Oxford, then went to the East for well over 20 years and learned about Buddhism and Taoist philosophy, and then came back and did a load of lectures. And one of his lectures is, what if money was no object? And it just says that the thing that you would do that you have a passion that you're really good at, just do that, and then society will reward you if society values it.
That's a bull market thing. I'm gonna directly disagree with that. In a bull market, everyone wants to do what they enjoy. In a bear market, they fucking come back to work and start making spreadsheets, right? So part of the reason China
McDonald's hat back on, right?
Post-war generation would not have told you that.
No, that's true.
So the post-war Brits were busy doing construction and menial labor and just building factories and mining, working in the coal mines. No one was, and they were PwC partners doing really stupid shit.
It's like mindset versus economy, right? Like some places are poor countries where people think they're rich.
This is a zero interest rate phenomenon. Do what you enjoy is fucking bullshit. I'm sorry, I'm gonna say that out loud. Let me finish. So that's not how it works, right? The reason the Chinese civilization is growing so fast and the West is not is because people are willing to work hard and make the sacrifices that need to be made. That's why Elon Musk is who he is, right? He's not just a guy who does what he enjoys. He's a guy who is very deep into the thing. So autism, again, right? It's not about following your feelings. It's about finding something you're great at, and you don't become great at something unless you spend a lot of time and energy and really intense work at it, right? So, but if that's also not rewarded by society and there's no fucking market for it,
then why bother?
then you might enjoy it, but you're gonna be like one of those hippies from the 60s, right? And hippies from 60s happened because, the economy kind of allowed it, right? All these philosophies go to zero very quickly once there is no food.
Yeah, exactly.
So, right, and if there is plenty, the age of abundance, as people talk about, right?
And Maslow's hierarchy.
Yeah, the fucking influencers are retarded. I'm going to say this out loud in crypto English. They just give you novel and they just give you high philosophy. But so it's like being a founder, right? VCs will tell you all kinds of theories of how it worked in the past. So you have to fucking go do the work every day.
Yeah.
So my influencer view on this is that you find something that is rewarded in society, but you're also very good at.
Yeah.
Right. And if you do that, and you're really, really the best at it, right? One of the if you're the best at Clash of Clans, right? You do very well. So now my dad would say, "What the fuck is Clash of Clans?" Right? So or you're a YouTube streamer.
Yeah.
You're just fucking amazing at it.
Yeah.
Right? Then my dad would not really appreciate it, and I probably wouldn't appreciate it either. But do you care? But the society rewards it. If you're a great OnlyFans model, like this AI teacher, what's her name, from Texas, Zara, right? So good for you, right?
Don't know who that
the society is willing to reward it. What do you want me to say?
This is true. I think there's a nuance here, right? You know that the image of the plane that comes home with the bullet holes, right?
Yeah.
The survivor bias.
Yeah.
I think that all the greats who are really good at what they do, they probably end up enjoying it later.
That's right.
That's why it comes out.
It's the reverse order. Most people think that I was enjoying it, so I became good at it.
Yeah.
It's usually the other way around.
Yeah.
Right, because the society starts saying, "Wow, you're so good at it. You're like Vitalik, not just the guy who played World of Warcraft. Ooh, wow, you wrote a nice article in the Bitcoin magazine." And he's like, "I finally found my people. They love me. Mom, you never loved me. They love me."
Yeah. Daddy, proud of me now.
That's right. And then you end up fucking Vitalik. So, I'm not saying it went like that. I'm sure his mom loved him. But you see, right? You start enjoying because you get feedback.
You get the feedback.
You get the feedback from inside, and you get feedback from the people around you. And then you see the first paycheck, and then your coins pump.
The pump is real.
The pump. And then your biology tells you that you're on the right track because the damn thing is pumping.
Exactly.
Buy more fart coin. And then you become a fart coin evangelist.
Exactly.
Right.
What about founders? You say you work with a lot of founders. What do you tell them?
Yeah, so founders. Oh man, I don't know why people become a founder. Fuck. I think there are various reasons people start companies. One is they have a real problem they see in the world and they want to solve it. That's normally not the case in crypto.
Yeah.
Right. So, or they see maybe Joe got very rich, or Sandeep got rich, or Tolly got rich, so maybe I can also do it. Right. That's often a lot of motivation for a lot of people, or because they just are not employable. As in when I was in a real job, right, I had to go in every day and I had to get performance reviews and feedback, and my boss would give me feedback, and who the fuck likes it? No one likes it, right? So even in England, a lot of people became contractors, right, because they would rather not suffer the ignominy of the performance review. So they didn't become founders because it wasn't there was not enough venture capital. Wasn't like Silicon Valley, so being a founder, but they became contractors, right? And that the only reason people became contractors, two reasons. One is taxes.
Yep.
But more importantly, just no performance review, right? Yeah, freedom, right? So, or because they weren't particularly good at navigating the ladder and things like that. I was a director and whatnot, and I was getting fucking feedback all the time. Mostly good, but half the time, 20% of the time it was quite critical and things like that. Obviously, no one wants it, right? Except the people who write books about it. So people become founders because they can't hold real jobs, right? Or people become founders because VCs have too much money to throw at them because interest money is being printed.
Okay.
And some Chinese guy's dad got rich in real estate, so he can't find a job. Now he has to look good. Now he's a VC, right? So not just Chinese, Indian, whatever, right? So just to be clear. So now you're a VC, and VC is a very respectable trade, and it's a mark of great honor. It's like the philosopher without a philosophy degree. right? Like I pretend that too. So yeah, it's so in the it's the highest evolution of a human being. You become a VC. It's like it's like being
You're bestowing gifts.
That's right.
Yeah.
Bestowing gift.
Yeah.
First, there is the illusion that you're rich.
Yes.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Right. Secondly, there is the illusion that you're actually intelligent, which is usually wrong.
Yes. It's like the halo effect with the
It's
money.
like the money and the intelligence, the illusion of intelligence. Obviously, everyone wants to make babies with you, right? So,
of course.
right, you went to IIT and shit like that. So anyways, so yeah, VC is the highest form of human race, and founder is what you do when you're not a VC, right? You have no money, so what do? You do bring labor to the knowledge society.
So you're the acolyte to the priest.
That's right. And you were never really fit to hold a real job. So, and there is ZERP and, money is being printed. So fuck yes, we're going to be founders. And it's more glamorous than saying, I'm just a engineer at Google Brain making $2 million a year. What's the fun in that, right? You would rather be poor and a crypto founder. I'm not saying that's you, but but those are most of the people I get to work with. But in crypto, because we are still figuring out what this thing actually does, apart from swap and send.
What do you think are the only real use cases right now?
Look, crypto is a financial technology.
Yeah.
Right. So I very strongly believe that the only thing you will ever do with crypto is finance. So and why is that? So because the way blockchains work, not that you need blockchain for crypto, but the only way blockchains work is by creating globally replicated singletons, right? Which means there is every object on this database has a unique identity, and it's not the same as the other copy of this object, right? So if I put a photo of a monkey once, that's a different object than the second time I insert the photo of that monkey, the same photo in a different place in that database, right? So now, because you have this uniqueness property, you have scarcity. Now, that's why people pay for NFTs, because each, it's just right click and download, right? But then it's a copy. So, but blockchains add to the internet is this uniqueness property of objects on the internet, right? Otherwise, you don't need this shit. It's not a very good database. So once you bring singleton property, then you have scarcity. Now there is and once you have scarcity, you can assign a value to it, right? So without scarcity, there's no value. Like the sand here, what's the value of the sand in a desert? There's no value, right? Now, and if you add transferability to it, right? If I can send it to you and this thing is unique, then maybe you will pay for it. Most of the times you won't. Most NFTs go to zero. But the only thing you can do now you have created a financial transaction, right? So when you work from the first principles back up, then you have created a financial transaction. Now what are you going to do? You're going to send, which is a payment. You're going to swap, right, for something else. Lend is also an interesting one. So, which is leverage, or, you can lever it up, and with smart contracts. So Vitalik invented this leverage machine. And now you have all the three key elements of finance. You have scarcity, you have the ability to transact, and you have the ability to borrow. So now suddenly you have the three key ingredients that comprise all finance, and you have debt. Bingo! Now you can build the whole fucking pyramid of modern finance in theory.
Yes.
Right?
Amway, but on blockchain.
Amway on, yeah. And you combine fucking social media with it.
Yes.
Right? So now, because you need information, right? Yeah. And blockchains are shit at carrying a lot of information. So you bring Twitter and TikTok and YouTube and whatever. Now you have an explosion. That's what's kind of going on.
Viral vectors.
That's what took Bitcoin. Exactly. Now that's what took Bitcoin from whatever, $0 to $96,000, and fart coin to $1, and hedge funds are buying fart coin. Yeah. This is not a fart coin shilling podcast, by the way.
Yeah.
So, but there are other.
There are fart coin podcasts.
There are fart coin podcasts. Yeah. So here we go. Right now we have this internet.
Yeah.
And Mark Andreessen wanted to add this money token to Netscape browser in '95, and he got killed because it was centralized. And
exactly same thing with Libra.
Exactly, regulation and KYC. Now, in the meantime, people just ignore the fucking government and fuck that, Now, and then the governments ignore it for a long time.
Yeah. And
now it's got so big that you can't put the genie back in the bottle because it's cross-border. But the question is, what happens when you start to wind globalization back?
Exactly.
Right?
Where does the capital go?
Exactly. Now that, let's say President Xi is not happy with some Chinese dude, and that dude wants to escape. He's probably going to put his capital in London, Dubai, wherever else. But how?
Yes.
Right. So now this thing becomes really, really even bigger. So globalization and the reversal of globalization could go both ways for this technology, right? On one hand, But there's also a lot of myths around blockchains, right? These things are and then people realize that you don't actually fucking need a blockchain, right? The only thing you need is the ability to send and swap, right? So Binance is good enough. You can list a token on Binance, which has no blockchain underneath it, right? And that's how you get meme coins.
Yeah.
So all you need is shared ledger, right? That and you don't even care about decentralization because it's a casino anyway, right? So yeah, fuck that. So FTX has its own coin, and your mama, as they say in memes, has her own coin, and everyone has their own coin. Zora has her own coin.
Let's talk about Zora. What do you think about the attempts to financialize things that probably don't need to be financialized?
Who am I to judge what needs to be financialized, right? So, I mean, let people try. This technology, that's what it does, right? Blockchains financialize things. As soon as you make something scarce and transferable,
immediate.
Now you're game on, right? So and if you run out of ideas, what do? You try to sell something to other people and get out of it, right? So that's my cynical view of Zora. That I think they tried to build something useful for a very long time, and their investors got antsy, and they said, "Oh man, you raised at 60 million. How are we gonna get our money back? At least fucking launch some tokens." Right, so that's my cynical view. I obviously don't have insider knowledge of what's going on in there, but it does look suspiciously like people trying to reward insiders and make some money back on that thing. The tokenomics and how the stake is allocated to insiders. So I'm not a big fan, but it's an unregulated market, right? Gary Gensler, my uncle, he used to famously meme hucksters. What is that thing called? Hucksters, scam artists, Ponzi schemes. So once you operate in an unregulated financial market, which is what this is, right? So then it's a free financial market, and
that means all things, right?
It's free in the sense of you can do whatever the fuck you want.
Yeah.
It's not free in the sense of the economic sense, right? So when economists talk about free market, they often imply information, right? Like information is free and it's immediately incorporated into prices. Obviously, that's never the case. The information is always asymmetric, and insiders have more information than outsiders, and they don't. By the way, economists do not require symmetric information for free markets, but
what's happening to the Argentina coin, right? Like, we don't know.
The president was used as an influencer by certain CD characters to launch a Milei coin, and they immediately Libra coin, and they immediately rugged it, as in they took the money, and I don't think there are going to be any consequences for it, right? So that's the wonderful world we are in, as in. And Hester Pierce, pretty much the SEC, crypto mom, pretty much said, look, it's not within our domain. Maybe the DOJ will have a view on it, and law enforcement will have a view on it, but then law enforcement has finite resources. So crypto, look, I mean, this shit has been going on in financial markets too, right? So there's this famous huckster song that one of these ETH, OGs did. Song a day, right? So then he cites a bunch of examples of HSBC's money laundering contributions and 1MDB by Goldman Sachs. And so financial markets, because money is so biological, right? It's the substitute for food and survival to human societies, exactly all of that, right? So the money is so biological that our rationality is particularly bounded in the presence of money. It's not that we are mildly irrational; we are very irrational in the presence of money. So I think the financial markets, and that's why there is so much regulation, because if there are no consequences, people do things that you didn't. Good people do bad things, right? So, but in crypto, where we are is that this thing is cross-border. No one really understands it, right? And even I don't understand it after 10 years. And how do you regulate something that is cross-border? Which regulation do you apply? Right? Exactly. Is it America's, or is it China's? Is it India's? I mean, so there is no. Is it really worth spending the cost for BIS or some of the regulatory agencies to coordinate? We can barely coordinate across European Union on securities laws. So, and it's like 3 trillion total, and most of it is not really real. Like this.
A lot of rehypothecation, right?
Rehypothecation. It's 3 trillion, maybe 1 trillion real. And maybe 200-300 billion in liquid values. Do we really spend time on this? Do we have bigger problems to fight?
That's it. Especially with war on the horizon.
So yeah, so there are, and then you end up with is it causing consumer harm, and how does that compare with the consumer harm caused by payday lending?
Exactly.
Right, so regulators have choices to make. Sure, we get a lot of headlines, but in terms of the relative impact of crypto, both on the good side and the not so good side, where does it compare with the other things in the mainstream economy? So policy people and regulators have very hard decisions. Do they follow the headlines, which is mostly crypto, because we are so much on social all the time, right? So
The most so.
We are 24/7 social media people.
Yeah.
I wake up at 2 a.m. and I check my Twitter, which kills
the
my
ultimate
sleep.
dopamine risk.
Yeah, so I think the world looks very different from the policy side than from the news media side. News media loves crypto, and policy people have other things to worry about.
What about the other side? We've talked a lot about the kind of the way things are, but what about the way things could be? Like, what would you tell someone young getting into the game?
Yeah, man, I wouldn't tell anyone young from computer science to do crypto first.
Yes. Why is that?
I think first you should try to build something useful.
Yeah.
Right, and it's very, very hard to find things new and useful to do in crypto. So on one hand, it's very hard. It's very easy to find something which is a variation of like a 2% better swap or a 1% better stable coin. But when in the world where AI is happening, right? And look, there is a world outside finance, right? Fortunately, I mean, I haven't seen it because I've been in finance 20 years now, but there is construction, there is groceries, there is medicine. Remember, like not trying to kill people, and cancer detection and space, and the world is big fucking bundle of wonders outside of money, right? And Wall Street and crypto have this pernicious tendency to make you believe that money is the only thing, and or money is the most important thing, because what we do is finance. I mean, it's all about fucking money. So, with all due respect to money, I need more of it. I always want more of it, but there are limits to that. And anyways, so I would like people, and money is not made by chasing money, right? So money is like compare Nvidia or Apple. Nvidia's market cap was recently bigger than all of crypto, right? So and that's like much more real money than stake, whatever the fuck we do. So, so double counting, triple counting. So I think money is not made by chasing money.
No.
Money is made by being creative in some walk of life that is society needs and is willing to pay for, and that has scale, right? So I would like my kids to try something else first, right, before they get caught up in either Silicon Valley venture capital. It's just money shit, right? Crypto or Goldman Sachs or but if you and it's not the path for everybody, and it's not up to me what they choose to do, right? It's up to them. But that's not what I would do. I started my career in telecommunications engineering. I built some pretty useful shit that's still used, right? So I didn't get rich off it, but at least I built some shit that people use. I haven't built anything in crypto that people use, well, maybe, I was doing BD for Aave. People use that, right? So, and I was a bit of an Ethereum evangelist and built some proposed trade systems. But there are very few things that I can point at and say, oh yeah, this is a product that everyone uses, right? Or everyone uses and it's not a fucking casino.
Yes.
Right. So I have nothing against casino. I use casino every day and I love it, right? But that's not what I want for everybody. And so because crypto is fundamentally like this evolution of Wall Street and financial services, and it's fundamentally financial technology, so it's very limited. Right now, you can try and throw it at everything. There is AI crypto, but Nvidia Jensen Huang doesn't want AI crypto startups in his AI accelerator, right? So my point is that yes, we are building the substrate of finance, and it's very, very valuable, and it's the path for a lot of people. But I'm very happy with my life because I actually spent a lot of time as an engineer building shit people use, right? It's not impossible to do that in crypto, but it's very rare. And it's rare for two reasons. One is that the incentives are bad, right? People build a bunch of products that are useful and they never find the light of day. because the product that everyone uses is the fucking token.
It's the token.
That's right. It's a marketing speculative mimetic product that people just like to trade on the internet. So it can be very demoralizing for an engineer or a product person, and some people learn to deal with it. Like Toli is a fantastic example of an S-tier engineer, or Shriram is a fantastic example of an A-tier researcher, or Vitalik. But do they really learn to deal with it? I don't know. I mean, Vitalik still seems to have his doubts, and so Ilya still seems to have his doubts. The guy who was on the LLM paper. So I'm sure other people have doubts too. Right, Silicon Valley people have doubts, and everyone has this midlife thing where they reflect and say, "Did I really use my time in the best way?" But I think it's important to, in the early years of your career, try to build something that people actually use, and I'm very proud of those things, right? And those are the founders I look for. Although I have learned to look for a different type of founder more recently.
What do you look for now?
Now I look for people who can hype and yap and sell cosmetics, right? So there is no fucking way in the world that XRP should be outperforming Solana. Sorry, everyone is going to hate me, but except if you understand it more sensibly through the angle of anthropology and internet tribes and intellectualize it that way, that's great. But if I'm starting out my career as a CS person or as a developer, I think I would give it a shot first, where I can actually create something more like an iPad or a GPU or some AI based product that solves problems for a call center. I know it sounds boring, but that's a $100 billion market right there. Yeah. So crypto is a small market, and it's growing, but it's not been regulated, formalized yet. So it's still very.
Well, it sounds like you're saying like crypto's coordination. Other things are building something, right?
Yeah, that's Shriram's intellectual version of it, but it's very limited coordination.
That's true.
So it's coordination in the sense of money.
Yeah.
Right. So money is a tool for coordination. Yes, absolutely it is. But I mean, how are we coordinating on Telegram? How do the trenches coordinate? How do we coordinate on Twitter?
Yeah.
How do we coordinate? So I think and Shriram also has information theory background, right? Shriram Kannan, founder of Eigenlayer. So I've debated this with him a bit, and So I think it's yes, blockchains can be a very powerful tool of coordination in certain ways, but law is the fundamental instrument of coordination, right? So code is law, money is one, but when money doesn't work, what do? You invoke the military, you bring the law, right? So law is the fundamental tool of coordination in society. What blockchains do is reduce the cost of contracting. They reduce the cost of coordination, right? So they're not fundamental to human coordination. We coordinated just fine without laws over the internet and through international laws, through wars and military and whatnot, right? So through courts and panchayats and 50 lashes and all that stuff. So law is the fundamental tool of coordination. Information, flows are about coordination. Blockchains are about a very narrow space of coordination, which requires the other aspects to work. So, but it does add it can take a lot of cost out of coordination, right? Cross border on the internet, how do you coordinate with someone you don't know?
Yeah.
Right. Yes, you need a blockchain, right? So there are some contexts where blockchains only work.
Yeah. Well, we're privileged in the sense that people in Argentina and Turkey, all of these places, we're seeing more and more people saving in stablecoins, right?
Yeah, because their local currencies are shit. I have a very developed country worldview on finance, right? That's why I'm the reactionary who still likes regulation and calls Gary Gensler my uncle and shit like that. But the reality is financial services as designed today do not work for most people.
Yeah.
Right. So but there are other solutions. India has built UPI. Right. China has its own system. India has built Aadhaar, and now you can challenge and say privacy, this and that, and those are all valid objections, right? But the fact is that I can pick up a $50 mobile phone in India and make a Paytm transaction, and it's so much more secure than my Ledger wallet.
Way better than you setting up endless seed phrases and everything, right?
Exactly, and no Bloomberg interview for that shit, right? So, so Europe has SEPA. UK has instant transfers. Dubai has its own payment system. So blockchain, look, we work in this industry, right?
Yeah.
So when you work in pharma, you want to sell everybody some pills. But
Exactly.
but the thing is that this is in a specific context where pseudonymous, privacy preserving anons transacting across the internet, especially in systems where the state-run money is a failure.
Exactly.
Or where you cannot trust the state, right? And you should never trust the state. That's the other thing. Sorry. So I mean, I never enjoyed any authority other than my dad, and I think he was also too much sometimes. So what's great about crypto, right?
Yes.
It's about empowering the individual. That's what it's about. So now I've been bitching about crypto because the markets are making me sad. But the positive side of this is cryptography was always about empowering the individual. And once you bring in money into that, and you say, okay, look, you lose your money, your problem. You make money, your problem. But this is in your fucking control, right? There is no government, no bank, and that's a superpower. That's why this thing is growing so fast.
That's the beauty of it.
After all the shit is taken out, right? All this money laundering. I mean, one person's money laundering is another person's freedom, right?
Exactly.
It's all complicated. So, or you take out market manipulation, all this influencer KOL shit, and all the misconduct and all of that. That's like 10% of the story. The other 90% of the story is still just the empowerment of the individual. That's what's great about it. I think that's why fundamentally we are here, apart from, because there are other things that pay better.
I agree. What's one thing that an opinion or view that you have about the future or artificial intelligence, anything that you think that other people don't have?
I don't think I have any unique opinions, but I have a lot of opinions that other people will not employ me if I spoke them out loud. Okay. I think I might have spoken some out loud already, like my friendliness to regulation.
Yes.
But I think regulation fundamentally scales things.
Interesting. Right? What do you mean by that?
Meaning, as in, once you see, Gary Gensler, my uncle, was all about he never laid out clear rules, right? He had a massive opportunity to clean this shit up, right? So crypto markets have lots of problems, which is why Coinbase and others, well, that's one of the reasons they are lobbying for the market structure bill, right? Which is, if you're going to scale this thing, a lot of people just don't want to deal with crypto, institutions, corporates, because...
A lot of risk.
Because no one knows what the fuck is going on, right? So there's just not enough transparency. Now, blockchains are supposed to be about transparency, and crypto markets have very little transparency. So what are you going to do? Are you going to operate in this market, right? There are no disclosures. There's no 10K. There is no, IPO filings. There's no information on anything. There are all kinds of forward-looking statements being made by founders that we are partnering with Alibaba. Alibaba doesn't know they're partnering with you, right? So I mean, there's all kinds of shit that goes on that we have dealt with in securities markets, which is illegal now because we had that experience. And it's perfectly fine in this wild west. So it's very hard for a very large part of society to actually engage with crypto, right? Even today. Now, Trump and others have kind of legitimized it in some way, but also not legitimized it by doing other things. But at the end of the day, it's very hard for a very large part of society to really use this technology, right? And for what it does. And unless we have some rules of the road, that's not going to happen.
And what about stablecoins? What's your view?
Oh, absolutely. I think stablecoins would not have been so popular if they were not America's Belt and Road.
What do you mean by that?
By payments require all kinds of compliance.
And what's Belt and Road for people that don't know?
Belt and Road is China's infrastructure initiative to essentially invest in infrastructure across China and the rest of the world to connect, the world, Africa, South America, and Asia with China's trade routes and stuff. So it's part of what America tries to do with war, China tries to do with trade, right? And most people don't think that way. Most people think that the capitalist Americans are the messengers of trade, and the Chinese are anti-trade. It's exactly the other way around, because China has everything to benefit from trade, and they are very competitive. I might be smoked on Chinese propaganda a bit, but I should be Huawei KOL, but. But empirically, the Chinese are all about trade.
Yes.
Right? They haven't gone to war in most countries because it's in their advantage, because they can compete. They have low costs. They have a lot of labor, right? They have labor that's much higher quality than Africa, but is not that much more expensive. than South America. So it makes sense for them to compete through trade as opposed to through war, right? So the reality is the opposite of perception often, right? Whereas Americans are, oh man, I mean, they have the military everywhere and
The greatest marketing department on earth.
yeah, I mean, so the Hollywood and they have great cultural power and this and that. So, I mean, America also does export a lot of software and technology. They bring a lot of innovation to the world, right? So, but at the end of the day, so Belt and Road is about China's, empire building, but they're doing it through trade because that's the logical path for China, right? Because they can compete on a lot of different things. So they're building infrastructure so that they build their soft power. And they also have a lot of political influence on these countries where their infrastructure runs through. So they're playing the same game as Americans, right? That's what empires do, and that's what the Brits did. I mean, they killed a lot of people in India, but they laid the railway lines. We're still living off of their railway lines.
Yeah.
Throughout history, it's the destroyers that become the builders. Americans destroyed Japan, but then they built Japan. Right? They built World War II. Right, the Germans and Americans can be credited for destroying most of Europe, but then they rebuilt Europe and made it very, very prosperous. So destroyers become builders because war and trade are fundamentally human instincts, right? That's what our groups and tribes do. So we love to swap, which is why swap is so popular, right? I don't know what else we swap, but I'm not going to go there. So here we are, and now that creates a challenge for the American empire because now you have lived in a unipolar world for a very long time, and now you end up with another force rising, and it's very hard to compete with that.
Do you think all these tariffs are too late?
Yeah, I think they're counterproductive. I think the tariffs are counterproductive. Mostly it depends. So, there was a time when the French had this company called SGS Thomson. They used to sell semiconductors. They were the second biggest semiconductor design company in the world. And TSMC and Cadence. Sorry, Cadence was the design VLSI company, and TSMC were the manufacturing company. Now you don't hear about SGS Thomson on either, design. So tariffs worked for the French for a while. They sold a lot of color TVs, but they made the French industry fundamentally uncompetitive, right? So it's the same as the American farmers, it can work if implemented in a certain way, but
they're temporary measures, though, right? You can't keep them forever.
Yeah, but China has been fairly protectionist, right? It all depends on your bargaining power, right? So the question is, do you have the bargaining power? And now we'll find out. As in, we saw China blinking today, right? So America has been blinking all week.
America's having a seizure all week. We don't know what's going to happen, but that's a tactic too, right? I think it's interesting.
Yeah, we don't really know how this is going to play out, but I'm optimistic, but I'm also pessimistic on I think. And what does it mean for Dubai? Because we are a center of trade. We benefit enormously from trade. We don't have oil. We're not living off of our natural resources. We're living off of hard work and vision, and that's why Dubai is always in front of every technological movement, and the government goes out and really tries to encourage people to move and live here. Whether it's crypto, it was crypto capital before President Trump came about. So yeah, I think.
Do you think Dubai is a new American dream?
It's been pretty good to me. So I've really enjoyed living here. Mert and I've been shilling Dubai to everyone
KOLs
on Twitter. Yeah, we're big time Dubai influencers. We love it here. There's no tax. You don't spend your brain cells on fucking running spreadsheets to put every transaction and pay 50 people. It's safe. There are no knife crimes like in London.
It's true. No phone jackings.
No phone jackings. You leave your stuff somewhere. Mostly it comes back.
Yeah.
Dubai is, and there is restaurants. It's very cosmopolitan, very open, very liberal. You get a lot of FUD about Dubai in the West, and then you come here and you're like, wow, this is incredibly open. Of course you have to respect the local customs and norms. I don't go around kissing my wife in public because that's not part of the culture. And so there is all kinds of things people say, but this is an incredibly warm and open, welcoming place, and and I've really enjoyed living here. So my son goes to a really great school because a lot of expats come here, right? So like British expats, and the school right down here is fantastic, right? The NLCS. They send kids to really great colleges. I don't know, man. And and if it gets very hot, I just get on the world's best airline and go to California. So what do you want me to say? I love
Easy
it.
peasy.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, the only thing I do miss is the university system of the United States, right? Or Cambridge or Oxford. I don't find as many people to talk the kind of crap we've been shooting, right? But the only thing we don't have is the kind of university system, or one big Stanford campus here that attracts the brainiacs from all over the world.
Do you think it's a matter of time?
I think we're trying. So there is an NYU Abu Dhabi campus.
Interesting.
We are also working on attracting, I think the city is working on attracting other top universities. Yeah, people want to live here. You know, so that really helps. So you can see we're building an IIT in Abu Dhabi, and some of my professors want to move here. So yeah, it's a matter of time. I think there is capital, there is industry. If we can really bring that aspect to Dubai, I think it'll change everything, because it'll also change the branding in a significantly more favorable way.
Yeah.
Right, because America, the thing that's unique about India's history and China and the U.S. modern United States and even the Industrial Revolution is that we respect our philosophers. Right, the philosopher king, like our Shriram guy, or Vitalik. Those are the people we really value, right? Because we know that the innovation they bring and the thinking they bring can transform societies and give us what we have today. So yeah, so I think that's the one thing that the city probably is going to do more.
Because I've been looking at moving over here, and compared to even renewing my driving license in the UK, I was speaking to Alex from Super Team AE, and then they were just, the way they set you up and say these is the process, and it's very quick, very easy.
Incredible.
It's amazing. It's easier for me to move here than it is to renew my driving license in the UK.
Yeah,
crazy.
It's an incredibly welcoming city. I mean, the one thing is people don't settle here, right? It's because it's a small state, small city. So there's no like long-term immigration for most people.
I see. I think it's a lot of transient people coming through.
Yeah, you come, you work. People have lived here for 36, 40, 70 years. There are generations that have lived here without becoming citizens. But that kind of makes sense in the model, right? Because it's a city of trade. It's a small emirate compared to, let's say, United States, which is a very large country, or UK. And their immigration needs are different from,
and that comes with its own challenges, right?
Yeah, it comes with its own challenges. So it is what it is. So it's sometimes hard to form those relationships.
Yeah.
Like, my wife and I lived in London for 12 years, and people just settle there, right? A lot of people settle. So she had this circle of friends, and those were the same people she saw every day for 6 years. Here we've been, around 3 years, and people keep coming and going, and so I think that's one thing that's different from Europe or some of the US cities, but then it has its trade-off.
Part of the benefits of the city come with that transient nature,
That's right. That's right. It's the city of trade, right? So people come, people go, people trade, people make a living, people buy property.
I think we're coming up to time. I think I'd like to finish a little word association. Might be fun.
Sure.
Best chain.
As of today, oh God, everyone is going to hate me. The best chain. The safe answer is Bitcoin, but these days I'm spending a lot of quality time with the Solana guys. I love them.
Fine. Most impressive founder.
God, Elon Musk. You mean in crypto?
Anything.
Elon, definitely.
Most ridiculous thing that's happened in crypto.
Is there only one?
yeah, you got to pick one.
I think the president doing his own meme coin.
Gotta be, right?
Yeah,
so surreal.
It's gotta be. It's just incredible.
And what's your favorite crypto app? What do you actually use?
I use Binance a lot.
Love it.
And Bonkbot.
Yes. Yeah, Bonkbot.
Yeah.
Great app. Amazing. Chain Yoda, it's been
Thank you so
fantastic.
much.
It's been really fun.
Thank you. I hope I'm still employable after this.
Well, we'll see. We'll see.
We'll find out.
You and me both, mate.
Thank you.